But I tell you, happy Tuesday, everybody. My name is Andy Elliott. I'm a realtor here in Williamson County, Tennessee, and I'm with my best bud, Rodney Wilds, who's a loan officer with First Bank, also in Williamson County. We just kick around some ideas, the news of the day, that sort of thing, and let you know what's going on behind the scenes. So, Rodney, how are you, bud?
Fantastic. Couldn't be better. How are you?
You know, it's been a week already. This is Friday, right?
Not quite.
Hi. Ah, no, that's good. That's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of deals flying around. A lot of negotiations going on. I mean, it's real estate. It's heat of the summer and a lot of stuff going on. It looks to me like, tell me I'm wrong, that mortgage rates have dipped a little bit today. Is that accurate?
They're trying, yes. They're trying. Getting in the low sixes.
No kidding. That's saying something.
Yes, it really is.
I mean, the topic today of the show is new rules, new normal, and what I mean by that is when the rules changed in last year in August for the real estate industry in general, we've had rules change. But the interest rates have kind of remained the same, and Rodney and I have been talking about this for a couple of years now, that humans are kind of funny, meaning even when times get tough, we get used to it. It's just that's the new normal. This is a tougher time, and so what I'm going to talk about in this article, as we get ramped up here in a second, is that the people that I've been working with recently and getting communications with on the phone, because that's a lot of times people start with just a phone conversation, to see what's going on. I don't know about you, Rodney, but I've gotten fewer and fewer questions about what are the rates today. How about you on that? That's a question I'm interested in.
I'm not. I guess that's because I'm the one telling them the rates.
Yeah,
It's so they almost don't have to ask, honestly, is because that's kind of part of something I've just always did. That's the first thing I do is provide rates and fees. So, I want that out up front, so there's no surprises ever. So, it's almost like they don't have to ask because that's why they're talking to me anyways.
absolutely. And that's why I send people, full disclosure, if I have buyers and they're looking for a lender, I send them to Rodney. I've been working with Rodney in this capacity for, God, since 2013, I think. I think it's 2013. Jay Toms introduced me to you back in the day. I'm sure you still see him from time to
Oh,
time.
J
But
Tom, yes, sir.
oh man, he's a really good guy. But I want to ask you before we jump into this, because this is a question um, I think is important. If we've got buyers that are looking at this, and full disclosure, what usually for our show, what we get is we get our views after the fact. So if you're looking for information, how to get a hold of us, it's in our contact information is in the description box, and it'll be in the comments below. But um, the question that I have, and I think that you've been telling me about this year for years, and I don't want to say preaching because I don't mean that. There's more to a loan than rates. And if you were to try to characterize that, if you could for me, I'm catching him flat-footed. Anybody that's watching we didn't prep for this. What would you say to that?
It's the whole package. It's definitely rate is 9 times out of 10 the most important thing in your equation there.
Hmm.
You have cost, so evaluating cost is high up on that list. And then when you have things like mortgage insurance and or any other type of something on the loan, that's when it becomes you have to really dive in and make sure the product fits, because you could, and this is the strangest thing, and I never say this, I always send it to a customer in writing, is that I never send them never tell them sometimes it's better to take a higher rate because you're going to have a lower payment. And people, you just can't say that without, giving them the paper and explaining. And what I mean by that is sometimes you could have a program with a higher interest rate, but maybe no mortgage insurance, if you're over the 80% LTV mark. So that's what I would say. Look at the whole package. But if you don't have mortgage insurance, nothing fancy, typically the rate is going to be 9 times out of 10 the most important thing, unless your cost to get that rate are astronomically high. You have to evaluate the cost and the rate together. But with some kind of closing cost estimate, a loan estimate, you can see that.
This may be a crazy comparison, but I'm going to try it anyway. What you're saying, in my opinion, is 100% accurate. And I'm not, for anybody that's watching that doesn't know us, I'm not just trying to be agreeable. Here, let me tell you this quick story. Because it's 200 degrees outside, it's like standing in the sun. And I in my townhome,
literally standing in the sun.
Literally standing in the sun.
On the sun.
On the sun, something like it's freaking hot. But in my townhome that Rodney helped me buy, by the way, I have an HVAC that is literally, it was installed in 2006. I mean, it's almost before air conditioning. This was when they were running steam powered air conditioning. I'm kidding about that. But anyway, it's been around a minute. And I thought, with this kind of heat, I better be prepared. So what I started doing was calling HVAC installers, Hiller and Lee and all those guys, because I know me, if something were to happen tragically with it, then it's getting like the sun in the house. You're all pressurized, you're flipping out, making really bad decisions, Cost you $33,000 to install. Fine, bring it,
Yeah.
So what I did this week is I started calling AC guys, and I've had probably 5 out so far. And what Rodney is talking about is the whole package, because it's interesting. Some of the prices are just get out of here. That's panic pricing, but the others are pretty close. However, in order to make a decision, I have to look at the whole package, meaning what's the warranty like? Are they going to work on ductwork? Are they going to, what's the series? All of that stuff. There's a lot. The cheapest price isn't necessarily the one I'm going to go with. That's all I'm saying. So that's, I didn't expect that. That was off the cuff. How is that? That's pretty good.
Yeah. Just a real life story. That's what makes that's what makes our podcast special, Andy.
It's real life. Here we go.
It's the reality check.
It is a reality check. So home buyers may have accepted the new norm on rates. The theme is it is what it is. How about that? That's another one. Good. Affordability headwinds persist as 30-year fixed rate mortgage rises again. Today, in particular, it's actually gone down a few basis points. We'll let Rodney talk about rates if he wants to. Yet the stream of mortgage applicants remains stronger than in 2024. I don't know if you knew that, Rodney. Mortgage rates are hovering in the high 6% range, pressing buyers' budgets. Economists have blamed elevated mortgage rates for curtailing what is typically an active selling season. I would have to agree, and I'm not going to ask your numbers, but I mean, for real estate agents in general, the sales numbers are really comparatively low to the last few years. So they're right. And I think that if there was a bottleneck, it's going to be that rates kind of clog people up. The Realtor.com released a metro market statistics dashboard. I might show it to you later. You can take any metro in the nation and kind of take its temperature in terms of affordability and that kind of stuff. It's kind of interesting. Maybe I'll show you. Jessica Louch, the deputy chief economist at the National Association of Realtors, noted at a real estate forecast summit, the first-time home buyers comprised 30% of home purchases in May. While that percentage remains low, below their historical norm of 40%, it does indicate progress, particularly from the record low share last year of 24%. Are you finding that to be in your business, do you have fewer first time home buyers as well?
We're it's
Is that an
first time
unfair
home buyer
question?
typically is right now is running. When I seen that stat, it's actually crazy how close it's running to. But it's still near the 40% mark. Ours hasn't dropped like that. We're still doing a lot of first time home buyer. It's, we were right on the average, but it hasn't dropped for us. But,
Hmm.
I don't know if they've just looked at recent, and I haven't seen mine in the last 30, 60 days or something. But
Right. The interest, and you do most of your. I'm going to ask you this, but you don't have to answer today. I'm like off the cuff. I'm asking Rodney stuff that we did not prepare for. Um, do you do most of your business locally, like Davidson, Williamson, Middle Tennessee?
no, I'm referring to pretty much our whole footprint, bank footprint. So it's definitely a lot in Tennessee, a little bit in Alabama, um, mostly Tennessee and Alabama. Um, but to do the first time home buyer, it's more the rural counties than it is like Davidson and Williamson, because I can't get a first time home buyer in Williamson. Say Davidson, Williamson County,
Yeah.
the medium house prices of, five, 4, 5, 600, whatever it is.
Yep.
So there's not a ton of there's a lot of first time home buyers, but not like it's just a difficult area to get a first time home buyer, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess your bottom line point is it's expensive living in Nashville. It just is, and it's funny. We live in Williamson County where the average home for sale is like 1.8 million. I think it's 1.8, and Nashville is 420, something like that. It's whatever. Anyway, home buyers seem to be adjusting to the rates in the mid. Yeah, I'm there. Home buyers seem to be adjusting to rates in the mid to high sixes and finally accepting that the 3% rate days in the early days of the pandemic are long gone. She notes having a more predictable interest rate may have given first-time buyers the confidence to enter the market. Boy, I'm going to make a point on that, and you know what's coming, and explore the greater number of choices in homes for sale. Although buyers remain nervous, mortgage applications fell 12% in the latest week on the slightly higher rates. Last week's numbers are still 13% higher than the same week a year ago, which is an improvement, right? Um, I'm going to back up a little bit, and I know that we've been preaching this kind of literally for a couple of years. Having a more predictable interest rate may have given first-time buyers the confidence to enter the market. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, you've said it for ages. Like you need a stable market, stable market, stable market. And when rates are going skyrocket from 3 to 6%, they went there pretty fast. They've stayed there 3 to 7, I guess you could say. But um, yeah, that was a big thing. Is that's the opposite of stable when they're just going up like that, and but now it takes some time for people to get used to that, and it did. Like
Yeah.
we, I never hear the 3% comments anymore. I never hear it. It's just kind of the new normal, and it is. Everything's enough time passes by, you forget about everything. But that's a good thing, because we were so unrealistic on what rates were at that time. And now is a more realistic world. I wish it was obviously a little bit lower, because this is the mark where people start entering the market now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The only comment I hear surrounding that 3% stuff is, God, I wish it was like it was back then, at that 3%. They'll reminisce on what it was like. Boy, I wish it was like that, now, but it's not. And so we're moving on. That's how long is spent on that. And when we're talking about those rates and stuff, I'm just going to say this out loud. I kind of wish the administration would just shut up about Jerome Powell. I mean, the reason I mention that is if stability is the watchword to keep people moving forward and feeling confident in the market, the last thing we need is for rates to be that whole system to get messed with, because then we lose that confidence and we're going to lose the momentum. I don't know, do you agree with that at all? Or, I mean, I want it to be lower too, but
I'm not a big fan of Powell, so
the sooner he's gone, the better. Yeah.
Sooner they start lowering rates, I just don't know what he's waiting on. I think he could have done it last year, but
Yeah.
He's forgot more about the economy than I know. So anytime I'm on here talking about I'm just going to tell you right now, everything is self-serving. In what I mean by that is, like, if you can't buy, if it helps mortgages and people buy real estate, then I'm for it.
Yeah.
So lowering the rate would definitely do that. So I'm always for what's going to help our market, just being transparent about that.
I'm going to pull up that dashboard after we get done with this one in a minute. So to finish up this article, and thank you for that, Rodney. It's a little light at the end of the tunnel. She says that more people are taking out mortgages for a home. It's not Lawrence. It's Lawrence Yoon of NAR. Said the real estate forecast on Wednesday. These are serious potential buyers. That's something else that's quite refreshing, is that the buyers that are coming into the market are really well qualified. They're prepared. They're ready to go. There's none of they're just ready to go. Solid buyers is all I'm saying. For the first half of the year, mortgage applications for home purchases have been persistently above year ago levels. The desire to enter the market has turned positive. That's that pent up demand that we constantly harp on. It's just a matter of when the mortgage rates come down, so we have an increase. So NAR launched this week a member exclusive, something that I get access to, and I'm going to show you in a minute, this Metro Market Statistics dashboard. And I'm going to show you how this works real quickly. So I agree with Lawrence. I agree with you. If the rates were to come down a little bit, oh, happy day, so that's a good thing. Let me show you how this works. This is right here. Now, this is for Nashville, Davidson, and we could do it anywhere. But the idea on this is so that we as agents can show and share with our clientele what these different rates do to the impact of lower rates, meaning how many people can buy a house, the differences between 6, 7, and 6, and housing affordability. Let me show you what I mean. It's a little bit hard to see, but not that bad. At a 7% mortgage rate, all households, there's 268,133 homes or buyers available to the market. They're able to buy. If we drop to a 6% mortgage rate, this is in Nashville, Davidson County, nothing to do with Williamson, it's 313,000. So the increase is, if mortgage rates fell from 7 to 6, we'd have 45,710 more households in our area alone that could buy a house, plus 12,000 renter households that would be, it seems to me, be able to convert to home buyers. So I thought, 45,000, that's significant, right? At least I think it is. And then let's go to, there we go. Housing affordability. Oh, man. I'm not going to mess with it. It's messing with me. Anyway, so I mean, that's a lot of houses that we're able to add to the roster. Here's my thought for you, Rodney, on did you have a particular, remember I told you, I warned you. I'm going to do, did you have a favorite on the Reddit stories for the Riff?
Yeah, the HELOC one.
Got it. You know what time it is?
Let's do it.
Wait.
There it is.
Wait, there's, okay. Here we go. Rodney's
right.
Riff. Thanks, Rodney.
Let's jump in. All right. This Redditor is asking, how can I keep my current home without my spouse HELOC? I'll go over some of the details here. My spouse has dementia and financial paranoia. He wants his portion of the equity out of the house now. He has moved back in with his mom. Long story, but it's typical for his type of illness. The kids and I love our home, and I can afford it without him. That's a huge comment right there to me. But I need him off the deed and mortgage. I don't want a divorce. We live in a community property state, and my banker is recommending a HELOC. I don't need money out of it, but it will replace our current mortgage. I have a significant amount of equity. The rate is actually equivalent to our mortgage, mid-sixes. I'll be the only one on the note and the deed. I'll pay my husband his equity now out of my own finances. It will help me buy time to figure out our new normal. Can this work, or is there a better option? Apparently it is not possible for me to buy it alone from us since we are married, and my attorney is not recommending a trust. How can I keep my home but take my husband off? All right. This is not uncommon. This right here is not uncommon at all. It sounds crazy, but it's not. I know exactly what she said, what she means when it's long story, but he has moved back in with his mom. People with dementia, it's a terrible, terrible disease. And so there's one, I always think about affordability. One, and she's like, I can afford this. So you just kind of remove that from the equation. So now you just look at, in my opinion, what is the best way to finance? What is the best way to get him off the thing here? And the community banker recommended a HELOC. And that's not surprising because that's pretty much the only product that a community banker would have. So, the first thing I would say is it definitely can work. The only there probably is a better option. However, I don't think it's a bad option right now. I would be fine with a HELOC, or I'd be fine with a permanent mortgage. The trust, my attorney is not recommending a trust. A trust is ownership. So a trust, you're really not going to, the trust can't pay money back or borrow money typically in when we're talking about homes. So the home they need to borrow the money, and then if you put it in a trust, that's a whole different, that would probably be the best thing in my opinion, because they're not thinking about one thing here. And what I would be concerned with is that they're still married. And community property state, the first thing she needs to ask is she needs to get away from her banker and go talk to an attorney, a real estate attorney. And here's why. Because if you even get a divorce, here's what I think happens in Tennessee. And I'm not an attorney, so this is free
We're just
YouTube
talk.
Yeah. But from what I know is, like, if me and my wife were to get a divorce and I were to move out and she took over the house, and I got my half, and then say a year later, 6 months later, I moved back in. I think after a point in time that this house becomes mine again, 50-50. That is what I would be concerned, is that she pays him for the house, but since they're still married, and if he considers move back in, or I think that's the stipulation, and all of a sudden they have ownership in that house again. So if it were me, I would consult a real estate attorney and figure out that part. Like, figuring out the money part is the easiest part about it, but figuring out how you don't get in this situation again because you're married and have to pay him twice, or pay his family twice, or whatever the situation is, see an attorney. Make sure when you pay him that, like, you understand the rules. If he moves back in, that you could lose 50% of your, of that or whatever. So that would be the only thing I would do, is check on the, how that, when he moves out and you pay him, it's done. You never have to do that again. That would be my first and suggestion. Figuring out if a HELOC or a permanent mortgage is the best way to go. It sounds like a HELOC wouldn't be bad for her until they figured out and seen what their new normal is, and then they can put that into permanent financing.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, let's jump into these comments because I know when this one's going to bring some goodies. All right, I'm going to start with a holiday customer, the very first one of the comments here. If there isn't a divorce, then I wouldn't pay him anything. You can loan a spouse money. You can't loan a spouse money. You can only take his name off by refinancing the loan, which I wouldn't do without a divorce. You're going to regret giving him the money without a divorce. This person's a little bit off. You can settle a property estate or a house and not be divorced. The divorce is not necessarily because the house is going to be a settled asset if they were to lead to divorce. But the comment clearly said they wasn't getting a divorce because of his health issues, right? He was moving back home because of health issues, not, even though it doesn't sound right. I agree. You can control some of those issues. The post-nuptial agreement, depending on your state, you don't need anything to do with the marriage right here. You need to seek your attorney and see what they say. You're married, give him half of equity doesn't mean you won't have to also give him half of what's left when you divorce. Get a post-nuptial agreement in place before commuting a community asset to separate spending money for him. So kind of right, kind of wrong. You don't need a divorce to settle a thing. So, but my family law attorney is advising against it. Let's see here. Another one. Here it is. Unless you actually go for and file the complete divorce, there isn't anything your spouse can do to force you to cash out he thinks is his. By law, in my understanding, you aren't required to split assets while married. They're not being required to split it. You didn't read the thing. It's something that she wants to do. If you stay married in a community property state, he will be able to claim ownership. See, this is what I was worried about. Even if he does not live there, is not on the deed. Even if you pay him out, get a good attorney. Active Matrix 99. Great advice, just because you said what I said. Sometimes the toughest road is the right one. Protecting your children right now is important than the marriage. I don't know. That's, I'd really be careful about avoiding any quick decisions. If he's seen as someone who needs extra care, there's a chance they could go after your own assets. Definitely talk to a lawyer and make sure everything you do assumes he might eventually require full-time around-the-clock care. That's obviously good advice. In the comments go on and on. Andy, was there any comments that you liked in here that you wanted to cover?
I just thought that was interesting, the whole concept of how do you keep it without my spouse? I mean, that's just a question that I've never had to deal with before. So
it's honestly, it like I said, this is not uncommon at all.
No, geez,
really? It's unreal. But the greatest, you can still be married and settle an asset. Especially at the end, and when somebody's got dementia, somebody's fixing to have a power of attorney for them, and all that. It's definitely a strange situation that he wants his money out and he wants to move home, and maybe that's their only asset. You don't know the whole situation, right? But financing it is the least of the person's worries. How to finance it is the least of the person's worry. my biggest concern would be is how do you do it and not get the community property state and the husband moving back in. There's just some rules around that you could potentially pay your spouse the money for their house, married or divorced, still married or divorced, and you have to pay them again if they move back in and certain things don't transpire, like recordings and things like that. So they need a good attorney, is what they need. They need a real estate attorney, and that should get them done there.
And just to kind of interject a thought too, that's a little bit sideways. I know somebody. I had a friend that had dementia, and that is a cruel disease. And for a homeowner trying to, just like you said, that person is never going to be able to sign a contract, for heaven's sakes, ultimately.
Right.
And I mean, I think that, I guess the bottom line is, I think that this person is being smart, asking those questions to get the right answer for them is, left to be seen. But still, I think that if you're dealing with somebody with that situation, you got to do something. That's all I'm thinking.
It's just amazing how everybody associates selling that house with a divorce. It's like, she is like, I don't want a divorce. Like,
Yeah.
And then everybody else is like, divorce. You don't have to get a divorce to sell a house, between two people, especially
Trust
that
me.
they don't want to get a divorce.
Yeah. Since I'm breaking the rules all over the place, can I ask you a question based within the Riff that's different than this? Is that okay?
You just did. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here it comes anyway. Should I continue with the extra payment strategy to pay off my mortgage? There's my question. What would you advise on that?
Is that the same one?
No, this
Is
is
that
a
the
different.
same?
This is a
Oh, a different.
different. Yeah,
Oh,
this
just a
is a
total different thread. And they're asking, should they continue to pay off their mortgage?
Yeah. I'll read a little bit of it to you so you can catch up a little bit. My mortgage started in May 2016, $295,000 for 3.5 for 30 years with a payoff date of 2046. The monthly payment is 13. From January 21 to December 22, I made 24 extra monthly payments of $1,300, which were applied to the principal balance. At the beginning of 23, my loan information showed that the new payoff date was 2042. So he saved, 4 years? I thought with all those payments, the reduction of years would have been greater. And he goes on to say, I got frustrated, only made one additional payment in 23 and 24. The question overall that I'm asking, is there a great benefit in adding extra money to your mortgage payment? Not necessarily extra payments, but I'm asking, if your mortgage is $1,500, should you pay $1,700 regularly?
If you can. I mean, there's a couple different strategies. And this is something you can. It just needs to work in your total financial package, right? Let's say I wouldn't recommend that if you're not funding your 401k, right? If you're not putting, a decent amount of percentages and hitting your targets for your retirement goals, I would start there before I would worry about paying off my mortgage.
Hmm.
And this is just personally, right?
Yeah.
And the way I think about mortgages is you start out like when I did mortgages on even this house, you start out with a 30-year fixed. And at some point in time, if you can ever get it to like a 10-year or a 15-year fixed within, say, 5 to 7 years, you're going to be doing really good. But even if not, even if you just have to pay mortgage normally, just try to time it where it's going to be paid off, well before you retire. So if you're doing all your other stuff, funding some of your other more important, in my opinion, like your 401k, your retirement funds is the greatest thing you can do for yourself and your kids, right? To not have your kids have to take care of you when you get older. But if you can fund that stuff, then absolutely pay off your especially if you're on a 30-year mortgage and it's the first several years of that. If you got a 15-year mortgage and you're paying a lot of principal every payment, then you may want to ride out that 15. But if you got everything funded, pay it down early. You want to avoid as much interest, penalty, and payment on interest as you can, and paying off a mortgage would do that. It's just, like some people have their mortgage at 3% right now, and they're earning 8 or 9 or 10% in the stock market. So you'd be crazy, in my opinion, to pay that off, and then you would have a whole lot more money if you had that money invested over the course of the year. Because what you'll do is you'll end up with a house that's being paid off, and you'll have all that equity and no savings. But at the end of the 30 years, if you just saved only, you'd end up with all the savings, and then your house would be paid off too at 30 years. But
well, clearly going to have to update my strategy. Thank you for Rodney's riff. That's good stuff. Thanks for letting me go sideways on you with that. I appreciate that. That's lesson learned. Glad I was here to hear that. And I am saying hi to Ann.
Well, listen, you can't. But I filed bankruptcy 9 times, so I don't know if you need to listen to my opinion on that.
Yeah, well, still,
I'm just kidding. I've never filed bankruptcy.
Yeah, I'm sure you have not. So there's 2 other things that I want to get.
Anything wrong with it?
Just 2 other things that I want to try to get to that before we finish up, because we're kind of on the downhill slide. Something that, and I bet you've experienced this a lot. Together with the first-time home buyers and home buyers in general, that when you go through the home buying process, one of the biggest deals, one of the biggest stumbling blocks, if I may say so, can be the home inspection. If you're looking at a house that's built in the 1950s and you're getting ready to and you want to buy it and you want to make it home, and you're getting ready to go through a home inspection, buckle up, because it's going to be exciting. If it's built in the 50s. If it's built in the 2000s, it might be less so, but not necessarily. So let's go through a little bit of this and just touch on a couple of things. And I bet, as a lender, do the buyers ever call you concerned about this part of their contract as they're going through it, Rodney?
The inspection part?
Yeah.
I get there's several calls about I get all kinds of in Tennessee sets us up to be this way, but I get several calls about, hey, this can I get out of my contract? And our Tennessee contract promotes that, actually. I don't want to say it. I have to use the word promotes it, because it gives you so many clauses and outs over condition of a property and inspections and everything else. It's like, but overall the process works great. So I'm not really complaining about it.
Overall it does. But the lesson on this particular article is, the title is called "Help Buyers Stay Calm After a Home Inspection." And so I'm going to read some of this, but I'm going to tell you the process that I go through with people, and did it just recently. This is a process that has proven successful for me in my business, my approach to it. And it really follows on a Terry DeSalm's rule of no surprises. His number one rule when you're working with people, whether it's real estate or not, it's no surprises. Do your best to warn somebody if a punch is coming. So here we go. Inspections always turn up something. Keep buyers calm and moving forward. Home buyers can get cold feet as they approach closing, and many real estate pros point to one common culprit, the home inspection report. With rising home prices, home buyers may be hesitant to take on additional costs for repairs. That's a big part of it. Buyers they're very sensitive about out-of-pocket repairs for sure. Combine that with the aging housing stock. The median home in the U.S. is around 40 years old, with many homes built prior to 1980. You recognize those things built in the 70s. That's like, I like the
Those
Jets.
are
I mean,
jewels.
I'm telling you. And it may be unrealistic to expect a home to come through an inspection entirely unscathed. A home is a used product, one guy says. There's going to be issues. I guess I meant to do this. There's going to be issues, but everything is fixable. Nothing is really insurmountable. And that includes all kinds of stuff that'll scare the wadding out of you, like if there's water in the crawl space and stuff. Those are, believe it or not, they're fixable things. And if you see cracks in the foundation, I'm not promoting this. I'm just saying that if you see that kind of thing, it usually can be fixed, you know. So, but some items that pop on reports are relatively minor to repair, like a loose railing, which used to be big on FHA. They don't do that much anymore, do they? Remember that loose railing used to be, there was 3 nails in it. They go, subject to. that gutter's
Yes.
falling off. Subject to. Shut up. Some items that pop up are relatively minor to repair, like loose railing or missing outlet covers. I don't remember that. Even more serious findings like mold are always a reason to walk away. Either mold can be a big, scary thing, but as long as it's properly treated and taken care of and clean, the house can still be good. Cook acknowledges home inspections often get labeled as deal killers. I mean, remember that the reason I'm laughing is I don't know that I'd want to be a home inspector. I don't know. I don't think so. Because here's, for anybody that's not been through it or hadn't been through it in a while, here's the deal. Usually people will ask, and these are RESPA rules, people will ask, who do you recommend for home inspections? I have several, so I'll give them, you know, some ideas on who I use, but I tell them specifically, you can use whoever you want. I've got one client I've never used or used my inspector once, like 8 years ago, and she will not use them again. She uses her own people beyond that. And I've got other people who are like, I don't know anybody. Who do you recommend? So they hire the inspector. This inspector is working for the client, meaning the buyer. But the result of the thing, if it kills the deal, who's, you know, kind of going, what? So if they find stuff that's a problem, I'm all for it. But there are some inspectors, is my point. Some inspectors go overboard. I had one, I got to tell you this story. There was, and I know that you've been through inspections before. A lot of times people hire their own inspectors for whatever reason. And I had one guy who, just a wonderful fellow, pilot, lived here in this area. And he was a very analytical guy. I mean, he was, yeah, you betcha. Home buyers are more sensitive now. But this guy was like an engineer type smart guy. And he hired an inspector that was analytical. And so the inspector came to the house. He had hired him. I called the listing agent, said, we're coming. And that inspector was in that house 8 hours. 8 hours. And he had a 160-page report on that house. And I was like, golly. At any rate, the buyer loved it, loved the report, bought the house. It was just, Lord. I just, not all inspectors are created equal, and not good or bad. So Cook acknowledges home inspectors often get labeled as deal killers. He just talked about that. He says inspectors aren't there to give buyers cold feet, but to help them be prepared for what they're buying. Here's the way I explain home inspections for buyers. Buying a house is overwhelming. You're talking to lenders. You've got tons of documentation. You got, in real estate, you got, what's a contingency? You know, what the heck is that? It's overwhelming. You got a lot of new stuff coming at you. And then you have this home inspection, which I warn them every time, it's going to be 60 pages long. I don't care if it's a new house. It's going to be 40 pages long. It's just, that's the way it's going to be. And so the way I explain this to buyers, new buyers, repeat buyers, because they have to be reminded too, that When an inspector comes in, you're paying him $400 or $500 to find problems. They're a human being, and they're going to find problems. Are they important? Are they deal killers? Are they a massive problem? Not usually. But there's two categories that our inspector breaks down. It says needs attention and for future reference, basically, is what the two are. And so if I tell somebody they're going to do an inspection and find 60 items, but 15 of them need attention of some sort, let's just be able to talk through that. Because I'm telling you, if you don't do that, and I made this one mistake probably a decade and a half ago, I don't know how it happened, but I didn't explain it well enough. And they got the inspection report, and it was 60 pages long, and they were like out of there. They were like, no thanks, too much wrong with this house. But it's a cracked plug plate, Nope, it scared them to death. So if you're buying a house and you're going to have an inspection, expect a long list. Please, for the love of God, don't just turn around and submit that whole list to the sellers and say, fix everything. Please. Please don't do that. Any thoughts on that before I move on, Rodney? Uh-oh. Did we freeze up? Yellow. Hang on. I think we got a little glitch here. Here he goes. Hang on.
I'm here.
There we go. Sorry about that. I'm having a glitch on this end. I'm going to press forward and go with this final article, and hopefully the bandwidth will catch up by then. This final thought I thought was very telling. And it's the number of housing markets with falling home prices jumped sharply to 109 from 31. You're pretty slow on that. Can you hear me, Rodney? That's going to be a negatory. Here he goes. Sorry, folks. Anyway, I'm going to go through this. Oh, Rodney left. He'll come back. So what we're talking about is, and we've been talking about this situation for quite a while now. Here's the theory. And when we talk about how the market moves in the country, if there's a trending of prices going down, and it's happening, it started happening a year ago when yep, he disappeared. We're back now. So the market started getting depressed. Prices started dropping a little bit here. Started last year, got more serious in the spring, and it's been like every headline is prices are dropping. I thought that this was really an interesting article where it says this. National home prices rose 0.2% year over year from June of 24 to 25, according to Zillow, published July 17th, decelerating from 3.2% year over year. In more metro area housing markets, they're seeing declines. Here's kind of what I'm getting at. From January 31st, here's what we had. I'm going to put it this way. If we can see that, yes. I know that's hard to see, Ange. But more metro areas are seeing declines. 31, here we go. 31 of the nation's 300 housing markets had a falling year-over-year reading in January of 2024. Here it is. 42 of the nation's 300 largest housing markets had a falling year, February 24. 60 of the nation's 300 largest in March. 80 of the nation's 300 largest housing markets in April. Every month you can see that it's going up, going up, going up. 96 of the nation's 300 largest housing markets in May. 109 of the nation's 300 109 of the nation's 300 largest housing markets had fallen year over year in June. What's interesting to me is simply this. If it's that many in June, what's it going to be in July and August and September? That's going to continue until something changes, like interest rates go down and they start forcing the prices back up. You know what I mean? Because more buyers come on the market, the inventory is going to get tight again, prices are going to start going up. The reason this thing was so interesting to me is because we were not trying to be a smart guy, but we were talking about how this is going to spread like a virus, like a mold. It's going to spread until it crosses the whole country. That's in my opinion, and we'll just have to see when that hits bottom. Because isn't that kind of the point, Rodney? That's going to be the canary in the coal mine, is when those prices start dipping back up, that we've reached bottom. Wouldn't you agree with that, or no?
Yes, yes, I'm anxious to see how it goes out. I mean, is it going to actually give us some relief on, because if it goes, this trend continues and house prices do decline, which we honestly haven't seen a lot of the house pricing decline. We've seen all these other statistics, but outside of that, it's month over month, it's up 1% or something,
Yeah.
So yeah, when we see this and actually, see the results of it,
And
but I think it's going to happen. I mean, I think it's like you said, I think it's going to continue to spread until something changes, i.e.
and you can
rates.
Yeah, and you can see that on this when you look at the first 20 of them, let's just say, the majority of all these that are taking a massive hit are in Florida. I mean, Florida's just getting pounded. And then there's Texas is involved in there, and the reason for Texas is it was a boom town, and so it's going to take the major hit, But I mean, Florida comprises probably the first 60%, up to and including like Panama City, and then you get down to be realistic, and this is like what's happening outside our back door, and it's going to be Nashville is, what is it, 1.7? It's right here. It's 0.14. It's down. So I just thought that was interesting, and I think that there's going to be more to come. That's the way it looks to me. So crazy stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Crazy
But
stuff.
Florida and Texas are going to lead the way.
I have to tell you, they are. I mean, we seem to be holding up okay, but yet we're also the same area. And I try to include our local stuff. I want it to be national, so that people know how that feel is national. But I want to include our local stuff too, because it's easy to say. What do they say? My toothache is worse than a tragedy across the ocean. It's that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
If it's happening in my backyard, it's tragic. If it's happening in your city, that's too bad. Anyway, that was an interesting take on that. That's I think I'm about done for the day. I tell you, Ange, I'm so glad that you popped by. We always loved seeing your face.
We can't have a show without Ange.
We cannot. I mean, I just would leave. Do you have any final thoughts, Rodney? We might be getting out of here a minute early.
No, good show. I like the content on it. It's pretty good.
I like it too. I like that riff. I hope that all works out for that lady.
Yeah.
That person with it. I hope that all works out, and I've got to
yeah.
revisit my strategy, because I've clearly been wrong for 6 years in a row. Oops. Should have asked that question a while back. See you next week. Is that okay?
You got it, brother.
Okay.